Join us at Glossy's Beauty and Wellness Summit from November 11th through 13th in Napa, California. Influential beauty and wellness leaders will meet to discuss strategies and pain points, discover innovative tech, and ultimately make valuable business connections through one-on-ones and casual networking. For a limited time, we are offering $200 off with promo code GBS24, no spaces. Again, that's promo code GBS24 with no spaces. Go to glossy.co/beauty summit for more information and to secure your pass today. Hello, and welcome to the Glossy Beauty Podcast. I'm your co-host, Lexi Lebsack, West Coast correspondent at Glossy, and I'm joined by my co-host and colleague, Sarah Spruik-Feiner, our senior reporter at Glossy. What's up, Sarah?
Not much here in LA with you this week.
I know, it's so exciting. Welcome to LA. How's your week been?
Good, but this working EST on PST is not for the faint of heart. I'm impressed with you.
Oh, yeah. There are some early mornings involved for sure.
I've done some 6 a.m. Zoom calls and I'm like, whoa, I don't know how you guys do it.
Truly. Well, on this week's episode of the podcast, I have a very exciting founder, Rosie Jane, the founder of By Rosie Jane, which is a line of fine fragrance and body care. Sarah, are you familiar with her line?
Yeah, I've fully had her body washes in my shower. And actually one time I had her daughters on a call with me. Gosh, what was even the story? I talked to them, I think just for one of my stories about like the teen beauty craze. And I talked to them about like what they were using. It was really fun. They were really cute. They were like in the back of her car going to school.
Oh my gosh. I love that. Oh,
Yeah.
all the daughters of all the founders that have all the access to all the best products and stuff.
But like every other like tween girl, they, want Drunk Elephant and everything else. So
Of course. Well, Rosie has been absolutely killing it. She has a really interesting business model that I want to tell you about. But the peg for this episode, of course, is fragrance and sort of the future of fragrance and where some of these lines are going. Of course, you and I both know, and I think most people listening probably know that fragrance has been on an absolute tear the last few years, continues to be a top performer across mass, across prestige. It is the fastest growing category within prestige at the beginning of this year. Sales for fragrance were up 12 or 13% year over year for last year. And I think a lot of this was really born in the pandemic. I think people really, obviously we know people wanted skincare in the pandemic. Nails had a big moment in the pandemic, but fragrance sort of surprised me. I don't know if it surprised you, but I feel like in the pandemic,
it blew my mind.
I stopped wearing fragrance in the pandemic, but it's not what happened at all, across the category. People were just buying and investing in fragrance, which I think is it's very interesting and very cool.
It fascinates me. And I agree. I think it's really nice that people were like treating themselves and wanting to, I guess, smell good for themselves unless I'm misunderstanding something. But I definitely was like rotting alone and not smelling lovely.
No, I feel the same way. I gave up most of my routine and it's actually taken me a while. I've only gotten back into fragrance like the last 18 months. I want to say I'm finally like, okay, like I'm back in the flow of my full routine. I know we were joking the other week about how we forgot how to do our makeup and hair, or maybe I just said makeup, but I forgot how to do everything in the pandemic. One of the sort of interesting things is that during the pandemic, like you and I, Rosie's beauty routine shifted. And she was also going through menopause at the time. And so she started developing all of these different body care products that are actually pretty different from her usual offerings. So A little background on her is that she launched the line By Rosie Jane in 2012 with fine fragrance. And then she entered Sephora in 2019, which was huge for them. They have a total of 7 fine fragrances. They have names like Dulce and Missy and Rosie, like single word names. And then they also sell direct to consumer through retailers like Revolve and Nordstrom. So they have a pretty robust omnichannel approach here. What I thought was really interesting is that she was developing these new lines, these new fragrances over the pandemic. And so instead of like betting big on her existing line of fragrance franchises, she went a totally different direction. And she ended up launching all of these products that were sort of inspired by her menopause journey. So they don't have any ingredients that could be endocrine disruptors. They instead are using essential oils and stuff like that. But inspired by her journey, they have more evocative names. So like one collection is called Wake the F Up. One is called Calm the F Down. One is called Chill the F Out. So they're much more evocative, more playful. And obviously they're based on the names. You can tell they want to provoke a mood. They want you to chill or calm or wake up. So I'm so excited to welcome Rosie because in many ways her road to success has been very unique for today. And a lot of that really comes down to how her company is structured. So By Rosie Jane is vertically integrated here in Los Angeles in a suburb called Glendale. They formulate, they manufacture, they package, and they distribute everything. So they don't need a contract manufacturer. They don't need third-party logistic vendor. They don't need any of these sort of vendors that I think a lot of businesses think about as being like completely necessary. They also are a very small team. There's like 8 of them, she said. Like It's a very, very small team and they're privately held with no investor debt. So definitely a very interesting sort of setup for her company. And she's very much in charge. She very much is like charting the course for her brand. And so this next move, I'm finally getting to the good part, but this next move is she's taking this really big risk. She's actually going into mass and they're launching all of this body care into Target.com and changing the direction of the business.
I think that makes perfect sense. I mean, there's been, as you said, this growth in fragrance and prestige, but there's also tangentially been huge growth in body care for at least 3 years. And, you know, as you were talking about the names of this franchise, I was thinking about the growth of like functional fragrance. And I really think of like the Nuco in that space, which is a much, much higher price point. And brands like, I don't know how to pronounce it, but Viral, which our coworker Emily just covered. And all of these brands that I think of when I think of functional fragrance, they're a lot of a higher price point. You know, you have like essential oils and you can use like a diffuser, but not everybody wants to do that. I mean, I've gone through periods where I'll use like a diffuser, but it's something that never really, I don't know about you, Lexi, but it never really sticks for me. Like I'm at the end of the day, your classic like busy consumer. Like I want to like do things quickly and effectively and move on with my day. And so I think like, you know, getting that 2-in-1 of like wake the F up and feeling like you're getting this like 2-in-1 benefit of like body care and functional benefit of aromatherapy, like it makes sense for like the busy mom shopping at Target. I am not a mom, but still busy. You know, like I think I could see that being really successful.
There's so many different ways fragrance is going right now. And when we look at the market data, we see the very expensive, very high-end fragrances absolutely killing it with sales. And then we also see like the body mist and the body category really exploding as well. So of course I had to ask her, I'm like, are you going to launch a body mist? Like, how could you not? Which she teased that like that is coming as well. So I feel like it's going to be a really cool, interesting time for her business. And, yeah, and it was a pretty good conversation.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Rosie Jane. Rosie, welcome to the Glossy Beauty Podcast. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah. Well, by the time that this episode comes out at the end of the month, you will have made the very exciting announcement that By Rosie Jane will be entering its first mass retailer. Congratulations. Talk to me about
Thank
this.
you.
Talk to me about this change, about the strategy behind it.
Yeah, I think it's always been in the back of my mind to make, particularly the body care side of By Rosie Jane, accessible in a real way. The way that I created it, the way that I designed it, and always what I had in the back of my mind was that it was this very everyday product, right? Designed to sort of change up what you already have in your shower, feel very accessible, still keeping incredible ingredients, the essential oil bases, high quality, high aesthetic, but in this very approachable way. Mm-hmm. It's exciting. I feel very excited and nervous about it.
Yeah. Well, you're sort of taking it slow, which I really respect. You're launching just on Target.com to start and just with the body care, right?
Just with the body care and just only with Wake, Calm and Chill. So this is a very strategic push for me and for By Rosie Jane to kind of start to separate away from being primarily just fragrance. Fragrance is my passion. It's what I love. It's definitely the way that I approach fragrance is incorporated into the body collection. But this is sort of me saying, you know what? I'm putting a clear marker in the ground. Body care is a new category for us. We take it very seriously. We want you to use them in combination, but I don't want it to just feel like an extension of my perfume line, right? Where it's like beautiful body care in Rosie, Dulce, Missy. That's a different experience. And I really want this experience for the Wake, Calm and Chill body side to be something unique.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure there are a lot of brand founders, executives who are potentially listening to this podcast who are maybe thinking similarly. I know that, we see mass just continue to expand and we see these like lines between like the Target or the Walmart shopper. And then there's the Sephora shopper. And then there's the Saks and the Bloomingdale shopper. And we're seeing sort of these lines sort of almost like disappear. But I'm also very curious, did you weigh sort of like the pros and cons to this? Do you feel like there was some risk around entering mass?
I'm going to say 100%. I think being an entrepreneur, being a creator is all about sort of pushing boundaries. And for me, Sephora and my relationship with By Rosie Jane is so important to me, and I would ideally love for it to be in both places, right? Like it's my goal to kind of really push out that I don't want to sort of separate. I think as consumers now, as customers, we really shop everywhere. It's not like I only get my beauty from Sephora or I only get my mass products from Target. There's definitely, we are all shopping online, in store, where we are for convenience as well for a lot of things. The body care specifically for me this is something that's in my shower. And whenever I look at that sort of mass market body care line, there are certain elements that are always missing, for me, which is aesthetic, beautiful ingredients, right? And accessibility. And I always want to think as soon as I go into more of a mass market, I suddenly get this watered down version of what body care should be. And I love it so much. It's such an important marker in my day, the way that I use it, that I wanted to be like, you know what? The way that I create, the way that I produce, the way that I package, I want it to be for everybody in convenience, in price point. So yeah, it's strategic and it's nerve-wracking all at the same time.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Wait, speaking of price point and sort of like making this a little bit more accessible, are you shifting prices? Are you shifting offerings? Like what will be sort of like the change, if there is a change going into Target.com?
Yeah, I think for the, where we are right now, we're not really going to change, but it definitely is sort of us moving in that direction and really taking this category to be a significant part of By Rosie Jane's message, part of our drive forward. So yeah, and I always want to look at pricing. I always want to look at packaging. I always want to be the most efficient and the most cost effective that we can be.
Curious if, and I don't know, this might be a silly question, but I know that years ago, retailers didn't want their brands like going onto Amazon, for example. But curious if you were nervous about some of your higher end retailers, so Sephora, Nordstrom. Were you at all like weary about alienating those relationships going into mass, or was that not an issue?
I mean, I don't think so, just because I know the way that our customer shops now, really, and they shop in both places quite happily, and they cross those lines that I think we've put in place as even retailers or even brands that maybe are blurred now and don't exist in the same kind of way. Also, our fragrance is really, we'll stay with Sephora, we'll stay with Nordstrom, doing all of those things. This is something very different, and that's where, even for me, I was like, you know what, I don't want to take my eau de parfums and put them into body care in a separate market. That's why I created completely new fragrances and a new message. The whole idea of it is about self-care, finding these moments for yourself, for your body in the shower. My experience through menopause, my experience through that isolation over COVID is really what drew me to create these products. And I was like so, impassioned by it, what the essential oils did for me, the fact that they're called Wake, Calm, Chill. They're all about setting a mood, setting a tone, kickstarting your day, settling down for the evening. And I'm so attracted to that ability with essential oils, with ingredients, with, certain botanicals. So I think this just has a different purpose. I think that's the main thing. Fragrance for me is beautiful. And of course it's a mood enhancer, but it's meant to smell amazing and be, memory-like and emotion fulfilling. But, these for me are really about mental well-being, taking a moment for yourself, but not giving up ingredients, environmental awareness, and aesthetic in a brand.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, I'm super excited to see how this sort of like all the dust settles for you.
I know, me too. I mean, I feel really confident about it. I think, Target is also, I really think it's sort of in its own class of mass retailers, right? It
Fair.
really does, cross this sort of boundary of still premium and prestige beauty in a mass market environment. That's what I love about Target. And I think that they not only do it in beauty, but they do it in fashion, right? They really have this very, middle ground, which I have been attracted to. Of course, I'm a Target shopper 100%. And it's always been kind of a dream of mine to really have work towards having a brand that could sit beautifully in a Target store. So I'm really excited about it. And I definitely think our customer is there and excited to see By Rosie Jane there.
So I do think there's a little bit of like mystery around mass. So I have to ask you, how did the relationship start? Was this something that was very long? Was it short? Did they reach out to you? Did you go to them? How did it start?
So I have the craziest long relationship with Target, just in the most random way. So a million years ago, it feels like maybe 2003, I had a little cheek and lip pot. It was my very first beauty product that I ever created. And we were in like little tiny boutiques, and I was just sort of like dipping my toe. It was called cheek and lip gloss, literally. It was like shiny for your cheeks, for your lips. So back then, I think Target was looking to sort of push into this prestige color, right? And they talked to, it was Napoleon and it was Pixie Cosmetics. Like it was way back in the day, right?
Oh my gosh.
Like that long ago. And they reached out to us then, actually. And it was just me, right? Like literally I was me with one product and I was like, okay, sure. So I flew to Minnesota, which is where they're based. And they did this presentation and of like, hey, what we're thinking of and what we would like to do in color. I mean, such a long time ago. Of course, we didn't really make the cut then because we were really one product and it was like me. I was like, what am I doing here?
Wow.
But what's crazy is the same beauty buyer is still with Target.
No.
Is that not? Yes. And
What?
I randomly emailed her, called, being like, hey, you may not remember me, but I also want to let you know that when you guys sort of gave me this little boost to be like, okay, this is a real brand, it sort of put me on the path, right, of continuing to build Rosie Jane. And then I got into fragrance. It was this very sort of organic thing. That's how it came about. And I was like, hey, we have moved into body. I want it. I love Target. I've been a customer. I've had this long-standing relationship with you guys, like from a bazillion years ago, or a connection, not even a relationship. And that's how it came about for me.
Wow.
I just sent that email.
I love it. I've had a lot of luck with cold emails as well. I feel like sometimes they just work. Sometimes people will just be receptive. And that's such a crazy story. It really just goes to show how small the beauty wellness space is and how you keep meeting the same people over and over again.
Yeah. And I think, it's about bringing something different, right? So, I think probably, a lot of people who work or want to work with Target are looking for a particular product, a particular price point. And we really sort of went in there with a prestige line. Like, that's why it's like, we're not watering this down. We're not saying, hey, let us make this $8.99 to get onto the shelves of Target. It was like, we're pretty sure our customer is there and we would love to try this with you guys. And I think that we took sort of a unique approach to it. It may all fall in a heap and everyone's like, Rosie, what the fuck are you doing? I don't know. But, I think as an entrepreneur, as a founder, you have to go with your gut and you have to go with what you believe in. And I really believe in the messaging and the product of our body care. And I believe it will work in a Target environment.
Mm-hmm. How are you? I know that this will have just started when this episode airs and you're still a little bit away, but how are you preparing for this, taking on a new retailer that's huge?
I think, again, in that sort of lucky way, we're really being able to baby step into it, right? It's not like we're launching into all doors, right? We're really sort of like dipping our toe, I guess, but we're really sort of being able to take this .com approach to it to really sort of see, okay, how can we approach this? How is our customer going to relate to it? How is the existing Target customer going to relate to it? Like the new customer that comes in. So, and I think for me, that was strategic. I want to really make sure that if we do end up going into all doors, if that is something that opens up for us, that we end up committing to or that they want from us, I want to know that we're going in there with all the knowledge, the best foot forward that we have, because it is a serious move and an exciting one. I mean, as I said, body care for me and this category is so exciting, and working with this retailer allows me to kind of draw that line in the sand and be like, hey, we're not just extending. This is a real category. So, yeah, I mean, I'm really excited. So we'll see.
That's awesome. Okay, so looking forward into the future, I know you mentioned a second ago that you're sort of trying to differentiate between the fine fragrance and the body care. Mm-hmm. They have different scents, they're different products, but curious as to sort of like, let's say, in a perfect world, of course, I'm sure you're going to do great in Target, but let's say, you kill it in Target, that becomes an even bigger part of your business. How will this shift impact what you're doing like next year or the year after?
I mean, honestly, the plan for me through 2025 and 2026 is really to expand and to push into body already. So that is already on the cards for us. And on the fragrance side, the same, right? Like I'm still bringing out a new fragrance. The way that I look at fragrance and it impacts and the way that I create for fragrance remains the same. This idea that you have to be either one or the other, right, is always challenging to me because I'm both. So I'm like, I don't understand how I can't have both categories. And just, in fact, there's a part of me that thinks it will be easier to talk about with this sort of clear definition. I think one of the things, we launched body care in end of 2021, I think. And, I think one of the hardest parts is really being able to educate our customer on what the difference is between the two, why this exists in the way that it does, wait, calm and chill. And I think we even did a little bit of body care in our best-selling eau de parfums because people were asking for it and it exists, right? So people were like, oh, I love body care. I love this. Would you do it in Dulce? So we felt that pressure to do body care, but it's not the reason why I invented this product or why I decided to go into that category. It was always about creating a different experience in the bathroom.
That's very interesting. So you were being asked for body care in the fine fragrance, and then you went in this totally other route, which I think is very smart.
We want to listen to our community. We want to, listen to our customers. So, and they are so important, obviously, to our survival. So we want to kind of play around and say, okay, you know what, let's do this. But, really, this is where my passion lies. And this is where I would love to continue to push and grow that side of the business. You know, and I want people to understand that because it's not, I'm focusing on this or because I'm creating this, that my focus is no longer on fragrance. It just, you know, I think for, you know, these big brands, they really are much more open to you going into cross category, right? Like really massive brands, but niche, they're always like, no, don't go that way. And I'm like, but this is where my mind is, right? That's where I'm going. And I really have to continue down that road.
Okay, so obviously, you know, your make fine fragrance. Fragrance is exploding right now. It feels like it's all we've talked about at Glossy over the last year. It's like fragrance, right? I'm starting to build in an entire section into my weekly briefing, like the latest in fragrance from the week, because there's so much newness happening. And just people are obsessed with fragrance, but they're also obsessed with body mist. So I'm curious, that feels like a natural progression for the line into mass. Are you thinking about that?
Definitely. You know, especially with these mood ideas, right? And the essential oil bases and, you know, absolutely. It's, you know, something that excites me. Even in the fine fragrance realm, I really love the body mist kind of idea as well. You know, it's how I grew up in the 90s. We all had like body mist, right? And what I love about body mist is the simplicity in it, right? You can really, it doesn't, you know, what I love about fragrance is the complexity and the layers and the notes. But when you get into body mist, you can be so much simpler as well. So it kind of allows you to talk to two different people or really get into layering, right? You can really go into these idea of like complex single notes, which I love for body mist. So yeah, it's definitely something that I am obsessed with.
Awesome. Okay, talk to me a little bit about formulating the body care, because I know there was more thought that went into it outside of just creating beautiful fragrances or nice formulas. Talk to me about how you were inspired and sort of like what is the driving force behind the body care.
Yeah, you know, I think, you know, everything at By Rosie Jane really comes from me, and it tends to be what I'm either focused on or motivated by or affected by. And I think unknowingly, I sort of started this crazy life change, right, which all women are going to go through for the most part, you know, thinking that it was something else and then realizing later that it was basically menopause. Like I was kicking into this heavy perimenopause, menopause, and now all the way through postmenopause. And over that sort of time when we were all shut down, I was like craving something to feel nurturing, something to help me. I was hot flashes. I was up and down emotionally. I was all over the place. And so I wanted to find escape, I think, honestly, and a moment for reset. And that is how body care came out for me. Not only in the fragrances, which I worked exclusively with essential oils, and really an idea of what each essential oil did and what it was there to do. So like Wake, right? We have eucalyptus and grapefruit, and it's supposed to feel zesty and alive and uplifting. So I wanted it to do that in the shower. And then the same with Calm, it's lavender, chamomile, neroli. These are really meant to relax us and help us prepare and sort of shift maybe into like, you know, like downward, right? It's wonderful. And then Chill I realized much more was my menopause journey, right? So peppermint is amazing for hot flashes. It's amazing. It feels cooling on the skin. So everything had a function and a purpose behind it. And then coupled with ingredients that are nourishing for the skin, hydrating for the skin, non-stripping, you know, I wanted it to feel decadent. I wanted to feel like the moment that I was spending in the shower, that either 30 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever it is that I had to myself, that it felt like I was doing something positive for my body and for my mind. And that's how it came about. And then the same with oils, with the body milk. You know, I think when I brought out body milk, I am an avid tennis player. And B, I was kind of in this menopausal phase. So I wanted something light and hydrating and that didn't make me feel like I was immediately hot and sweaty as soon as I put it on. So I wanted something that was so light, that absorbed quickly, that nourished my skin, made it feel good, helped with anti-aging properties, but didn't sit on top of it like a blanket.
Oof, there's nothing worse than like a rich lotion when you're about to go play tennis or do something like, or put jeans on. Oh, that's like it's like my daily conundrum. I'm like,
it's for me too. I know it's, and you know, the whole like movement of like the slugging, right? That became like a very like big thing. Even that heaviness of like a butter and then an oil over the top. I was like, I feel like I've been wrapped in cling wrap to go to bed. So I was like, but I could do it with the milk and then the oil because it still felt like light. So yeah, I love the idea of approachable, beautiful body care and beautiful beauty in general, right? And I think where there is this sort of room is in prestige body, this really feels like, you know, something very expensive, something truly like spoiling yourself. And I don't believe that personal care should feel that way, right? This is something that we use everywhere. It's like, you know, if you think about it like an everyday, like a deodorant or like a toothpaste or anything, right? Like you want it to feel approachable. You want it to, it's a necessity. It's something that we are going to use no matter what. It shouldn't be priced as a luxury item. And then I don't want to have to give up ingredients or smell or beautiful packaging for that.
Yeah. Well, I think you're really hitting on like so many different trends right now, which you already know, but it's like, obviously we're having this huge conversation around menopause right now.
Yeah.
Gen Xers are turning 60 or just turned 60 at the top of that.
I'm a Gen Xer. I'm Gen X. I'm 48. You're not Gen X, are you? No,
I'm an elder millennial.
Yes,
I'm on the high. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's so smart to be sort of, I'm assuming you're targeting Gen X.
You know, I think we're just targeting really everybody always, but the inspiration behind it came because of my journey, right? And I do love that Gen X customer. I know who she is. I know who they are, right? I'm very in tune with it because it's my own personal experience. But, you know, I also use and make, of course, this body product but my daughters, my kids, my husband, obsessed, everybody. I do think sometimes Gen X is left out of the conversation a little bit, especially in recent years, because, of course, we've got all the younger generations coming up behind us fast, and they add a lot of excitement and a lot of wonderful exposure to brands. And we want to talk to them as well. It's just that my inspiration and my backstory comes particularly from that generation.
Well, I'm certainly aware of like how much the Gen X generation is really holding part of the economy up right now. I mean, like this is one of the large generations that's doing a lot of the shopping. And of course, we're targeting Gen X, but they're also so young that it's like early 20s. Like how much buying power do you really have when we're talking about the business side of this, which of course they do. And then millennials as well. But I'm curious as to, I know you target everyone, but curious if there's like any nuance to the messaging around, you know, trying to reach Gen Xers, or I don't know if you found any kind of like nuance around that.
You know, I think we're actually a very loyal group of people, right? So a very brand loyal generation. You know, what's crazy, though, is every generation that comes up, they're always like, oh, they're not loyal. every single one. But, I mean, you know, I think we're actually a very connected generation, right? We've really crossed so many boundaries. We're completely digital savvy, right? 100%. We're on social media. We're on TikTok. We remember the old days. We remember the new ways. So I feel like we're actually a very easy demographic to talk to. It's sort of where, you know, whereas I feel like maybe as you get a little older into the next generation, which is, what is it? It's
baby boomers.
Come on. Baby boomers, yes. There's that disconnect. I was like, it was terrible. My mum's like generation. There is that little bit of a disconnect between social media and what it does and how to talk to it. So I find them a very exciting generation. I'm like, I find myself a very exciting generation to talk to because I have a level of understanding on across so many different categories, basically.
And it's sort of like that messaging works across social platforms as well, right? I mean, like Gen Xers are, you know, everywhere that millennials are, I think, right?
Yes, exactly. That's it. Yeah. And we have the bank accounts to be able to spend. You know, we're also, I think, and I read this, and I don't know if it's even still right now, but we're the largest entrepreneurial generation ever was Gen X, right? So, you have independence, you have, really women, I think, finding their way and their voices really pushing hard throughout this whole generation, right? Like all of the female founders, all of the heads of companies, they all really come from the Gen X. So, yeah, I mean, the way that we talk through social media, the way that we talk on our website through our product development, I think always has them in consideration, right, with the idea that we can reach a much broader market as well. But I would say millennial and Gen X is probably our biggest. Those two combined, that's really how our market shakes out.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk a little bit about your business model because I know it's very unique for the beauty industry. You are based in Los Angeles and you're vertically integrated. So you guys do most stuff on the ground here, right?
We do everything on the ground.
Wow.
It's so crazy. And I think it's because I started the company so small. We really, in 2010, we launched with just one fragrance. And then through growth and exposure and success, we've really grown the company in this wonderful kind of organic way. And that's allowed me to sort of expand the business and learn along the way. And always been able to, in the very beginning, we were fulfilling our own orders. We were fulfilling our own bottles. And then as we grew a little bit more, we just kept kind of pushing that envelope. We're still bootstrapped. So in that very beginning stage, we couldn't afford to go to a third-party manufacturer and be like, hey, here's the product that we want to do. And they'd be like, great, our minimums are 5,000 a SKU, 10,000 a SKU. And I was like, you know what, we just can't do that. So I basically was like, let's start manufacturing in-house ourselves. We hand-filled first, really one at a time. Then we got machines. Then we are our own distributor as well. So we ship every single product out of By Rosie Jane warehouse in Glendale.
Wow. That's really impressive. What is how many people are you employing right now?
We are a total of 20. We have, I believe, 14 in our warehouse, and then the rest is in the front.
Wow, that is so impressive. And that the fact that you're bootstrapped and the fact that you've been in business for so long and you're doing so well is like such a great thing.
I feel very, incredibly lucky. I never want to have that imposter syndrome where I'm like, I don't really know why it's successful, because I do in its heart, right? Like I know we make beautiful products. I know we're a super authentic brand. And I think that's also what makes us stand out. We don't, bring out product just for the sake of it. Everything we bring out has an intention behind it, has a fully flushed out idea. What are we trying to say? What am I trying to say? Does this need to exist? That's the question that I always ask. Is there a reason for this being here? And if there isn't, we're like, let's not do it. Mm-hmm. So I also always want to give our products like time to sort of find their feet. It's like as soon as you bring something else and then you're bringing something out again, I feel like it's almost like we're saying, especially in fragrance, because each fragrance really has a full story and a lifespan of its own. And I want to kind of give it time to grow. And I feel like every time I'm like, just like, here's another fragrance. I'm like sort of saying, well, this one was great, but this one's even better. It's like I want people to really fall in love with our fragrances and have them have an impact on their life, and know that when we bring it out, it's because there's some inspiration that I have either found or an emotion that I want to sort of bring back. It means so much to me. Each fragrance is really like a child to me.
Well, I definitely respect the cadence of which you launched products. I'm looking at my notes here, and you launched body wash, and then the next year launched deodorant, and then the next year launched body milk. And so it's like you really did let those breathe, which I think makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I think even and this transition, right, that we're sort of going more heavily into body care, right, and those fragrances is because it's like allowing the sort of the flower to bloom, right? I'm like, really, I want to make sure that when we do it, it's done right and that it's everything I want it to be, and sort of allow that to grow in this very organic way, and also make sure that our customer is excited by this from us. Like, even though I might be excited by it, everyone else might be like, yeah, no, we're not really, so I want them to basically tell us how they feel. And I think in order for that to happen, it needs breathing room.
is being vertically integrated been a strength in terms of like entering mass now? I imagine it must be like much easier to forecast, to ship, to just do everything, right?
Yes. Yeah. And I think, honestly, when we entered into Sephora, which they're not a mass market retailer, but they're big,
They're big.
right? Like, so they're massive. And I think, yes, for us, it was because we could also almost demand fill for them. So, we knew forecasting what was coming out. It allows us to be more cash efficient in reality, right? Because we're not having thousands and thousands of products just sitting on the shelf. We're really, it's a constant, it's like fresh baked cookies.
Totally.
But fragrance, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, so exciting. Well, I wish you all the best with this expansion. Is there anything else new for next year? What can we expect beyond all the things we've talked about?
There is definitely newness for next year. I won't give away too much of it, but definitely there's, expansion in definitely in body and absolutely in fragrance for us. So yeah, lots of exciting things.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. It was so great having you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for listening to this episode of the Glossy Beauty Podcast. If you enjoyed it, please leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening. And for even more coverage on the beauty industry and more, please visit glossy.co/beauty.